Hello students, I hope you all are fine and able to do all the work. Now our lesson for today is lesson number 3, types of economy. And in our economy, on the basis of nature, there are 3 kinds of economies. The first kind is a capitalist economy, second is a socialist economy, and the third is a mixed economy. Okay? Next. Now, what is a capitalist economy before we see the features? So basically, a capitalist economy is like a system in which all the means of production, that means things like labor, land, capital, enterprise, these are all owned by private individuals. So here government has nothing to do with the process of production. Everything is done by individuals, that means private individuals. Okay? And their only motive is to earn profits or to maximize their profits. Okay, so this is a capitalist economy. Let's see the features. The first feature is private ownership. So basically people and organizations can own private property, and there is no restrictions on the amount of wealth that they can earn. Okay, and they have the right to use their private property and earn profits from them. Next feature, consumer sovereignty. So in this kind of a economy, that means under capitalism, a consumer is considered to be the king. Okay, he is considered to be the king, and the entire productive machinery follows the satisfaction of the consumers. That means whatever production takes place, every production is taking place to satisfy the consumer. So consumer, to reach out the consumer and to let the consumer be the king over everything, over the entire production process, that is another feature of a capitalist economy. Next is the role of self-interest. That means the motive of self-interest gives directions and consistency to work harder and to earn maximum income by satisfying the consumers. So basically the main objective or the main self-interest of every producer is to earn maximum profits, or self-maximization is their ultimate motive. Next is competition. Now see, since profit motive is the aim, all the firms try to compete with each other. They are in a competition. Okay, so in this competition, the consumers are benefited because they get a good deal, for the commodities, and also, they get the best commodity, the best item, the best good. They get the best out of everything because of the competition, because every individual, every private owner is wanting to give out the best commodity in the market. The next is freedom of contract. Now in this capitalist economy, the individuals are free to settle their transactions or to make contracts. Okay, so every person is free to sell his goods and services to anyone. So basically, according to his own choice, he can choose to create a transaction or settle a transaction. Next, we are going to talk about the merits of capitalist economy. The first merit is an enriched human life. So basically, in capitalism, what happens is that the lure of profits compels the entrepreneur to take risks and to enter into new fields of production. And what happens, that a free enterprise economy delivers goods and services which are very highly demanded, and those goods which give higher profits. So human life is benefited, human life is enriched. Next is limited resources put to maximum use. That means in a capitalist economy, what happens is that resources are put to many users. Okay, so the people who use these resources in the best possible manner, they get rewards in the form of profits. And the people who are responsible for wasting the resources or duplicating the resources, they receive not a reward but a punishment. That means punishment not in the real sense of punishment, but in the form of losses. They don't gain anything, they lose everything, they don't earn profits. Next is higher standard of living. Now see, a variety of goods are available at cheaper prices, and this makes it very easy to be able to reach the poor also and the weaker sections of the society. Why? Because the commodities are sold out at a cheaper prices. So this helps to increase the standard of living of the poor people also. Next merit is rewards according to merits. So basically, all the entrepreneurs who are taking initiative and they are showing extraordinary work, they are doing a wonderful job, they are rewarded. Okay. On the other hand, the inefficient entrepreneurs are eliminated from the field. That means they are removed from this kind of a process of work. Okay. And the last merit is inventions and innovations. So basically, in this kind of a economy, competition is the essence of capitalism. Okay, so competition is the main thing, and for competition, to face this kind of a competition, it is necessary to have new technologies, new techniques, new inventions and new innovations, new discoveries, so that the outcome brings out success. Okay. Now we are going to see the demerits. The first demerit is too much emphasis on materialism. That means a capitalist economy is working on the terms of wealth, price, cost and profit. They are not thinking about human benefits, but too much importance is given to materials or materialistic things. Okay, so there is no consideration to the human welfare. For example, let's say wines and cigarettes. So basically people are free to produce it. It's not for the welfare of the society. Ultimately cigarettes and wine and everything, alcohol, these are all harmful commodities. But it's about materialism. It's not about the welfare of the society, but it's only about earning profits. So if these things are giving higher profits to the entrepreneurs, then they are going to produce it. Next is inequality in income and opportunities. So because there is a lot of competition, there is also the rule of the jungle that prevails. That means survival of the fittest. That means, in other words, no care is taken of those who cannot survive the competition. Okay, so all the entrepreneurs, all the industries which are not able to compete, they are removed from. They are not. If they are not able to survive, they are not able to do a good competition. This leads to a big gap between the industries, because one set of industries are able to compete well, and the other set of industries are not able to survive in the economy. So this inequality increases over time. Okay. Next is leads to monopoly and abuses. Now what happens in a capitalist economy? Competition can be wasteful also. Okay. The competition is cutthroat. Cutthroat competition means high level competition is there, extreme competition. So a lot of money is spent on advertisements, on giving posters and all details about the commodity that they are producing. So often competitors, what they do, they combine themselves into monopolies and exploit the consumers. This brings about a reduction in the number of firms engaged in production, and as a result small firms are eliminated. So basically what happens that because of the high costs and high competition, different firms try to become a monopoly. They turn out to combine themselves and they become monopolies. And when they become monopolies means single seller and single seller in the market, or a single producer. So when they become a monopoly, then they start exploiting the consumers, because in a monopoly they can set their own price. They can sell a commodity for how much price they feel like. Okay. The next is class struggle. Okay, so in a capitalist society, it is categorized by class struggle. Okay, so in other words, class conflicts. So the poor are exploited by the richer class or the richer section. This actually leads to a mutual distrust between the workers and the employers, and leads to social unrest. See, workers in a factory are from the weaker section of the society, and the employers are from the richer section of the society. So there is a huge gap between the two. And because there is a gap between the two, it brings a very not appropriate situation, and it brings conflicts, and in other words there is social unrest. And the last demerit is that it leads to imperialism. Now capitalism leads to imperialism. Basically the capitalist countries try to find new markets to sell their goods. Okay, so all the economies which are capitalist, they try to find for new places or new kinds of markets where they can sell their goods, because in new markets they will be more superior, because they are new, their products are new, everything is new, so they will be superior in the market in that way. And the stronger nations, actually what they try to do, they try to exploit the weaker nations, because the stronger nations are able to get into the newer market, whereas the weaker nations, they are unable to get into the market and do a very good work. So that there's a gap also, and it leads to imperialism. Next is features of socialist economy. Okay, now first of all, what is a socialist economy? Basically, this kind of an economy is engaged in production and distribution, but it is controlled not by private people, it is controlled and owned completely by the state, that means the government. So their basic motive is to ensure welfare, and they are trying to bring equality of opportunity to the people in the society. Okay, one example we can see in the world, basically Soviet Union was the first socialist economy, and there are some more countries that later on adopted this system of socialist economy, like Vietnam, China, Germany. These are all different countries which adopted the socialist economy. Now we will look into the features of a socialist economy. The first feature is state ownership. Like we already said, who owns the production? It is not the private but the government. Okay, so government owns it and it is operated completely by the government. For example, railways. Okay, this is nationalized. There are some factories which are nationalized. That means all the decisions are taken by the government. So state ownership. Next is social and economic objects. That means, see, a socialist economy is never blind, or in other words, we cannot say they are illogical or they are without a purpose. It's not the case. Okay, but their object is very clear. They have a very clear objective, and the objective is to maximize the national income. That means to increase the national income. That means the country's income. To achieve self-sufficiency, where they don't have to depend on any other country, and their main motive is to do social welfare in the society. That means to increase welfare. That means that there is no scope of exploitation of labor class. Basically, the government takes care of the poor section of the society. Next is economic freedom. So basically, according to the socialists, that means the people who believe in socialist economy, they are the socialists, and a socialist economy allows free choice of consumption. Okay, and also free choice of occupation. That means, for example, free choice of consumption would mean goods produced are available to consumers without any restriction, and the production in general is governed by the choice of consumers. So consumers have the freedom to choose. Okay, they have the choice of consumption, they have the choice of occupation also, they can choose their own work, they can choose their own consumption commodity, whatever they want to consume. So they have absolute freedom. Okay, the consumers have absolute freedom in this kind of an economy. Next is maximum social welfare. See, this is the main objective of a socialist economy, and they make sure, that means the government makes sure that the role of the employer is not to exploit the workers, but to definitely make sure that there is enough benefit of the society. And the last feature is absence of the right to property. That means over here, in a socialist system, personal property is not there. Okay, so there is no personal property. There is the property does not belong to a single person. It's nobody's personal property. It all belongs to the government. Okay, it all belongs to the state. Next is the merits of socialist economy. The first is maximum use of economic resources. Okay, so under this kind of a system or this kind of an economy, the allocation of economic resources is done by the Central Planning Authority. So there is a CPA who plans out everything over here. Okay, and in that case, everything is put to best use. That means, see, wastage is avoided. To duplicate the product is avoided. So wastage of resources and all does not take place over here. They make sure that everything is very well planned and everything is fully and properly utilized. Next is absence of competition. Now see, the motive over here is not to earn profit, that we have to compete with each other. The motive is only to benefit the society. So everyone has the same motive of benefiting the society, and they don't want to earn profits, they just want to help the society. So to help, they are not doing any competition, they simply do whatever they do for the purpose of providing maximum social welfare. Next is equality of income and opportunities. Okay, now a socialist economy is like a classless society. Okay, that means in this kind of a society, or in this kind of an economy, private property and profit motive is nothing. That is totally neglected. They are nothing related to socialist economy. Okay, so there is no such thing as rich or poor. There is nobody like rich and poor. There is no class struggle over here. So there is equal opportunity of work for rich also and for the poor also. So everyone can be equally employed, everyone can earn equally. Next is improvement of human efficiency. Now in this case, this system, that means the socialist system, actually aims at improving the efficiency of the workers. Okay, so their motive of course is to provide benefits to the society, but they also aim at improving the efficiency of their workers. So production is undertaken keeping in mind the welfare of the society, and not just the profit of the individuals. So it's not about just the profit, but it's also about improving the efficiency of the workers. It's about improvement. It's about bringing about welfare for the people. Okay, so government actually sponsors everything, and it helps to increase the efficiency. It provides for such opportunities with new technologies of production and research and development, which leads to good improvement of the efficiency of the workers. Then demerits of socialist economy. First thing, it is less democratic. That means it possesses no element of freedom actually. Okay, so it is quite similar to dictatorship, because there is no freedom to anybody, it's just the government who's taking care of everything. Next is loss of initiative and enterprise. In a socialist economy, the whole thing of economic activities in a country are totally controlled by the CPA, that is the Central Planning Authority. Okay, so in this kind of a system, or in this kind of an economy, the people are simply made to work according to the choice of the Central Planning Authority. So the workers don't have the freedom to work according to their preference. They have to work according to the orders by the government or the Central Planning Authority. The next is rigid economy. Okay, so in this case, socialist economy is a very rigid economy. It's not flexible at all. Okay, they don't have room for much. Okay, so and it is quite incapable of making changes according to the requirements. They are so rigid that they cannot give space for changes. Okay, they are unable to give space to changes. So people work like a machine over here, and they do hard work, they do a lot of hard work, they work like a machine, but they are not paid high. They are not given higher incentives. And the last one is bureaucratic control. So in a socialist economy, see, all the activities are controlled by the government, right? So they develop all the evils of bureaucracy. That means all the kinds of favoritism, okay, delaying of things, corruption takes place. These are all evils that takes place. So there is a lot of bureaucratic control, political control is there, a lot of politics enter into the industries. Politics means the political parties interfere over here. So too much favoritism takes place, corruption can take place. These are all problems of a socialist economy. Next we are going to see what is a mixed economy. Now see, first of all we should know, before knowing the features, we must know what is a mixed economy. Okay, so basically first of all we have to know that there is no economy which can be fully socialist or fully capitalist. It is very difficult to run a fully capitalist or a fully socialist kind of an economy. So basically mixed economy is a mix of both public as well as private activities. That means a mix of both capitalist as well as socialist economy. Okay, Basically, developed countries and some of the developing countries follow a mixed economy, like USA, India. These are examples of a mixed economy. Okay, and this economy is such in which resources are allocated and exploited. They are also utilized, also exploited and wasted at some point. And there are two decisions working here, government as well as the private. Okay, so this kind of an economy is a mixed economy. So basically what they try to do is they try to take all the benefits of capitalist as well as socialist economy and try to remove all the evils or demerits of the socialist and capitalist economy. Now we'll see the features of a mixed economy. The first feature is individual freedom. Now under a mixed economy there is complete freedom of choice of occupation. But at the same time, the government is able to regulate the prices in public interest through public distribution system. So basically here, people have the absolute freedom to choose their occupation. They can choose whatever they want to, wherever they want to work, whatever they want to work. On the other hand, the government has the absolute authority to regulate the prices. That means they are the ones who fix the prices through the public distribution system according to the interest of the public. That means whatever the public is able to pay, according to that the government sets the price. Next is economic planning. See, in a mixed economy, the government is trying to promote economic development, is trying to reach that stage for the country. Okay, so for this purpose an economic planning is adopted. See, if you want to develop, you have to really make plans, right? If you want to develop a country, it's a huge thing to do. There are supposed to be some very good economic plans which can help the country to develop. Okay, so economic planning is actually very essential for a mixed economy so that the economy develops. Next is economic equality. So in a mixed economy, citizens enjoy economic equality at large. That means at a very big scale. Some concessions are allowed on consuming a commodity, on production also, and also on the choice of occupation. But government can also impose certain restrictions. So there is economic equality by how that concessions are provided in consumption, production and occupation, choosing the occupation. But on the other hand, the government can also force some kinds of restrictions, maybe tax related or anything which the government can impose strictly. Next is profit motive and social welfare. Now in a mixed economy, there are two things that work: to earn profit also and social welfare also. So that means the motive of capitalist as well as the socialist economy, both are taken care of over here. That means profit motive is also fulfilled as well as the social welfare is also fulfilled. Okay. Next is role of the government. Now the government controls the private sector in a mixed economy. Okay, so government is taking care of the private sector. Basically, the private sector is supposed to function with the good of the nation in mind and not the interest of few rich owners of capital. Okay, so private sector in a mixed economy is going to work in such a manner that they think about the best for the nation. They have to keep in mind that they have to do the best for the nation, and they cannot do things of self-interest or try to bring self-maximization or bring a gap between the rich and the poor, or try to give the absolute ownership of capital to the few rich people. Okay, so basically the government uses various technologies and all to control the prices. Okay, next is the merits of a mixed economy. The first merit is encouragement to private sector. See, basically the benefit of a mixed economy is that it encourages the private sector. Okay, it leads to capital formation within the country, and in this system, that means the mixed economy system, the initiative of the private sector is always encouraged. Okay, so most important advantage is that it provides encouragement to the private sector, and it actually gives a proper opportunity to grow. So they get the chance to grow in the economy, and this also helps in capital formation. Okay, next is efficient use of resources. Now, because there is freedom in the mixed economy, both public and private sectors are working over here for the purpose of efficient use of the natural resources. Okay, so public sector works for social benefits, and on the other hand, private sector makes the correct use of these resources for gaining or obtaining maximum profit. Next is lesser economic inequalities. Now, Capitalism leads to economic inequalities, but under a mixed economy, inequalities can be controlled by the efforts of the government, because in the socialist economy, inequality is not there, right? So, because the government is also intervening in a mixed economy, in such a situation, the inequalities can be removed with the help of the government. Next is useful to underdeveloped countries. Okay, so basically mixed economy has been very useful to underdeveloped and developing countries, because both kinds of sectors are working here together. That means the public as well as the private sector. So they are not competing with each other over here. They are just trying to work together for a common goal. Okay, so there can be examples of countries like Africa, Nepal, India. These are all examples that are mixed economies. Okay, next is flexible role of private and public sector. So basically in a mixed economy, the government can actually convert some industries from a private sector to the public sector, or from public sector to private sector, depending upon the need of the economy. Okay, so there is flexibility, there is chance that private sector can be converted into a public sector if private sector is not able to fulfill its aims and objectives, and a public sector can be converted into a profit making sector or a private sector when they are not able to fulfill the government motives. Okay, so there is flexibility, there is enough space to do this kind of a conversion from public sector to private sector, and from private sector to public sector, from public sector to private sector. Yeah. Okay. Now we will see the demerits of a mixed economy. There are some drawbacks. And what are these drawbacks? We will see them. The first is unstable economy. Okay. Now in unstable economy, the thing is that economy is not very stable. Okay. So basically public sector is overemphasized and private sector is unduly controlled by the government. That means not given much importance by the government, and more importance is given to the public sector. That means the government owned industries. So that means in this case economy remains unstable. It's not very balanced, it's not stable. Next is inefficient planning. Okay. Now generally mixed economy lacks the planning system, a good planning system. Okay, so what happens? A large sector of the economy remains outside the control of the government. So in this case what is happening? Because there is no efficient planning over here that takes place in a mixed economy, so there are some economies which are out of the control of the government. Next is delay in economic decision making. Now in a mixed economy, two sectors are working, so there is mostly delay in the decision making process of the public sector, in the case of public sector. Okay, so this kind of a delay actually leads to problems, or we should say obstacles or hindrances in the smooth functioning of the economy. So when there is a delay in decision making by the government, by the public sector, then what happens? The economy that should be running smooth is unable to run smooth because the decisions are not yet made. Next is fear of nationalization. What is the fear of nationalization? Okay, so in a mixed economy there is a constant fear of nationalization of private sector. That means the private sector can be nationalized, that means can be converted into a public sector. So the constant fear keeps disturbing the private sector, and they do not get a free atmosphere to invest and grow. They are not getting the freedom to grow fully. The next point is corruption and black marketing. Now in this case, in a mixed economy, there is a lot of problem of corruption and black marketing, because political parties intervene, okay, and there is a lot of evil happening. For example, tax evasion takes place, corruption takes place in the form of black money, in the form of taking bribes, okay, other kind of illegal activities happen. So these all lead to a corrupted economy in the country. Okay, next we are going to see is a developed economy. What is actually a developed economy? Now see, An economy is considered to be developed when the standard of living is high and the per capita income keeps increasing. Okay, they all are high, they increase. So an individual standard of living is actually measured by the income of that person. What is that person earning? And the per capita income and the standard of living of the country is measured by the per capita income of the country. Okay, so a country is called developed when per capita income and standard of living both are high. Next is a developing economy. What is a developing economy? So, a developing economy is neither fully advanced nor is fully backward. Okay, that is a developing economy. It's neither very advanced nor very backward. So, such countries are actually engaged in making maximum possible use of their raw materials, their capital, their manpower in order to attain economic development. Okay, so developing nations can be countries like Iran, Indonesia. They are in the category of developing nations, and USA, Germany, UK, these are all developed economies. On the other hand, we will see economic growth. Economic growth actually means increase in per capita income over time. So over a period of time, when the per capita income keeps increasing, that is economic growth. Okay, and then what is economic development? Economic development is actually, it focuses on factors that help to improve the standard of living of the people. For example, the health sector, the education sector, the drinking water, sanitation, electricity, these are all parts of economic development. So focus of the government is on these factors that help to improve the standard of living of the people in their country. So basically, economic growth is for a short period of time, or we can say it is a short-term process, and economic development is actually a long-term process. It takes time to develop. Okay, I'll just give you an example of economic growth and economic development. Now the term growth, for example, we'll take the example of human beings. Okay, so the term growth for human beings means what? The height will increase, the weight will increase. Okay, this is a physical growth that we are talking about. But if we talk about human development, it will consider the physical development. Okay, and it will contain things like maturity of the person, the attitude of the person, the behavior of the person, the habits that the person has, what feelings the person feels, what is the intelligence level of the person. This is development. But growth is simply the height of the person, the weight of the person, or the complexion that keeps becoming fairer or changes day by day. So this is growth, whereas development has some factors, some aspects. Okay, so in the same manner, the growth of an economy is measured through an increase in the size of what? Current year and previous year. When you compare the current and the previous year, that tells you the growth of the economy, that the economy has grown from this much to that much. That's just growth. But economic development actually includes not only the physical aspect but also the non-physical aspects. Okay, for example, the lifestyle of the inhabitants. Okay, increase in the income of the individuals, improvement in the technology, improvement in the infrastructure, development of the industries, of firms, of different sectors, public as well as private. That will be considered in economic development. Okay, students. Here are some notes. I want you to understand this. First thing is, there is a difference box of developing countries and developed countries or economies on page number 58, and I would like you to see this table box that helps you to understand the difference between both of them. It has 6 points. Please go through them along with the basis of their difference. Next point is that for economic growth and economic development, I would like you all to refer to page number 62, where there is a small table with 7 points along with the basis of difference, which gives you an idea about the difference between what is economic growth and the difference and what is economic development. Also, I would like you to learn the definitions of economic growth and economic development, which are given on page number 62. Economic growth definition is given by Paul Baran, and economic development definition is given by Irma Adleman. Okay, so please learn both the definitions, and I want you to not only learn but please write them in your registers. Write and learn the definitions. Next is on page number 58, you will find about India as a developing planned economy. Please read that on page number 58, 59 and 60, and a little bit on page 61. Please go through it. It's just for helping you understand that how is India a developing planned economy. The next thing is on page number 61, you will find that Indian economy is a mixed economy. How is India considered to be a mixed economy? This is given on page number 61. So I would like you, on the basis of what I explained to you about the mixed economy, relate that with how India is a mixed economy. Okay, students, I hope you will follow these instructions and study well. All the best to you all.